Hey, everybody, how you doing? This is Chris from Captain Borax. Long time no talk. I don't like to get on. I don't like to show my face on camera as much as some people do. Not that that's a bad thing, but it just ain't my thing, you know. But anyway, the reason I'm putting this on the tip of this video right here is this is a previous video that's been out for a while. But me, being the way I am, I put a monetized song on just for a little quick snippet when I'm driving over to Milpitas, and it's that song, "Do you know the way to San Jose?" Well, I love it, it's great, but I totally got dinged and the video got blocked, so I had to like cut that little piece out and readjust that, and so I took that piece out, and now I'm putting this on there explaining why I'm doing it. Just so you know, FYI. Beautiful day here in glorious Las Vegas. I have another video I'm working on as well. I've actually got several. I won't go into too much detail, but I'm doing one on the Bakersfield Sound. I'm doing one on Rudy Ray Moore. And the one that I'm currently working on is about Ed Kemper. But anyway, more to come soon. I'm sorry I just haven't been out there. You know, I mean, you might say that, you know, I could lie to you and tell you that I was really busy or something, but the truth is I was kind of lazy. You know, I'm kind of a lazy bastard at times. What are you going to do, man? I'm in my 50s. I work all week long. Me and Bonkers hang out. Oh, it's Bonkers' butt. Anyway, you were entitled to have a little explanation why I'm reposting this video that has already been posted in the past. And that's why, because I had to cut it out and re-render it, etc. So while I'm at it, I'm just going to adjust a couple of things out too. But anyway, peace out, more to come. Sorry it hasn't been a lot of stuff, but I've been kind of getting back into video lately. So that's all I got to say. See you, love you, bye-bye. San Francisco. Oh, we got a misty day out here. Incredible. You can see the bridge shrouded in mist. So the Presidio area right up here, where it's an old military barracks, just right back up there. I know Metallica, that movie Some Kind of Monster, which was directed by Joe Berlinger, by the way. Just a little 6 degrees of Joe Berlinger there. Metallica recorded, I can't remember which, I think it was Some Kind of Monster. Was that one of their albums, or was that just a video? I can't remember. That's the one where everybody's crying, you know, and they have a psychologist, and it was kind of horrible. I'm out here visiting the folks in North California. You know, strangely, I grew up in a town called Sonora, which is in Tuolumne County, the old gold rush communities back in the 1840s and 50s. You know, the term 49ers came from that. It's kind of old motherlode country is what they call it. The first big gold nugget that was ever found was in a town called Sutter's Creek in Calaveras County. Calaveras County, wow, that's incredible, is just the next county over from where I grew up in Sonora. And so I thought I would do a little light digging on the Leonard Lake and the Charles Ning story. It's extremely convoluted, very hard to find detailed police reports, but I'm still working on that. More to come on that for sure, but I thought I would do something light so people could put a visual to some of these places. Anyway, it all starts in San Francisco. Home run liquors, huh? There's even a guy getting a home run right now. Anyway, we're heading towards Balboa High School, just off Ocean Avenue in San Francisco, where Leonard Lake actually went to high school, graduating in 1964 before joining the Marine Corps in 1964 as well, and going on several tours of Vietnam. In his time in the Marine Corps, Lake was described as having diagnosed actually as having a schizoid personality. People with schizoid personality diagnosis don't necessarily have aggressive, violent tendencies. In his case, you know, it's obviously a little different, but that's just an interesting little point of reference for Leonard Lake from the United States Marine Corps while in Vietnam. Little San Francisco neighborhood, I believe it's called Balboa Park. Would make sense that Leonard Lake actually lived in this little cute little neighborhood. Pretty cool, actually. A cool old high school. Darn it hard to get some really good shots of it. I'll grab some from across the street. But it's definitely era correct on Cayuga Street. Balboa. Just for interest's sake, you know. Don't get to swing by San Francisco as much as I wish I could, since I don't live in California anymore. Look at these old doorways. You go right in the school. Better get out of here before I get kicked out. No students until 8:05 a.m. Well, that's very specific. Well, here's a better shot of the high school complex. Very large. Now, you know, the chances are that Lake lived right around in this neighborhood. Very interesting. In a neighborhood back here called the Great Highway. I don't think that's the official title. One of the things I love about San Francisco is so many of the structures in this town, there's the bay right out there, are still standing. I mean, these are old houses. You know, so much of it got wiped out in 1906 when they had the great earthquake. And it wasn't necessarily the earthquake that destroyed most of this town. Like the oldest parts of San Francisco, there's only a few remaining structures. I think there's a couple of old ones that were built in the 1850s, but most of this town burned down. It was from fires caused by the earthquake in 1906. But these are definitely older. I mean, maybe these are older as like 1950s or something, but a lot of these have, some of the ones we just drove through are much older than that. But back in those days, you know, those big fires that started, you couldn't put them out. There was nothing, and everything was made out of wood. Everything. Hell, I saw logging trucks going right downtown San Francisco a little while ago. You know, there's you know, it's easy enough to get wood in this part of the world. Redwood trees from up north, up in Calaveras County, for that matter. They truck them out here to San Francisco. But in 1982, December of 1982, Leonard Lake's mother, Gloria Eberling, and his younger brother, who was 32 at the time, were living, let's see, we're almost there, right in this neighborhood. Leonard himself wasn't living there. 2020. This building here, this just behind the school bus here, in 1982, Leonard Lake's younger brother was living with his mother, Gloria Eberling, and Leonard dropped by the house one time in December of 82 and asked if Donald would like to take a trip up north to the Redwood Valley area in Mendocino County where he was living at the time. I think he was recently divorced from his first wife and was probably dating Claire Lynn Balatz at the time. But anyway, he stopped and asked him if he wanted to go on a road trip and go up north. The brother said, yeah, sure, and was never seen again. Now, according to Lynn Balatz, by the way, it's kind of interesting. The ocean is just right there. It's like literally right there. Lynn Balatz says that Lake hated his younger brother, Donald. He referred to him as a retard and an imbecile and just lots of things like that from different things I've read. He picked him up and was never seen again. Obviously very distressful for the mom. Now the mom lives in the area still, but not at this house. There it is, 1994. So it's one of these, probably the lower one right here. But that's where Donald disappeared from and where Leonard Lake's mother, Gloria, was living at the time. All the way until 2012, I believe. She's still alive, 91 years old. And that was one of the earliest records of people disappearing between Charles Ng and Leonard Lake that we're aware of. And I believe that Charles and Lake had already hooked up at some point in 82 or 81 through a Soldier of Fortune magazine where Leonard had placed an ad selling something that Charles Ng, I have the hardest time pronouncing his name, and hopefully I'm saying it correctly, answered the ad, and they were kind of a duo ever since then. On July 11th, 1984, an ad was put in a local paper here by a couple of guys, specifically one man named Richard Gialetti and his boyfriend, Richard Carazza. They had put an ad in the paper, they live right up here around this corner, for someone to come to their apartment building so they could give head to a straight man. Now, apparently, Charles Ng actually answered that ad, and when the door opened to the apartment, I'm not sure exactly which one, I'll show you the building here. When the door opened, he blasted Gialetti in the face, and he was a local DJ for a station around here. Blasted him in the face and shot Richard Carazza in the chest, who survived and actually was able to identify Ng. 153 Henry Street. This is the address where Gialetti and his boyfriend Richard Carazza were attacked by Charles Ng, and it's still here. You know, who knows which one they lived in, but that's the address right there, that green building. God, these streets are insane. They're so tight. Yeah, kind of panicked there, but that's it right there. That's the building. This is the neighborhood where Paul Cosner lived. November 2nd, 1984, he was a used car salesman. He basically just bought and sold cars. He had a 1980 gold-colored Honda Prelude, which Leonard Lake was arrested with later on when Charles Ng attempted to shoplift a carpenter's vise. But he lived just right down here at the end of the street. I don't want to spend too much time here with the camera. His sister lived out here as well and spent a long time trying to figure out what happened to him. But his identification and several other things that belonged to him were found in Wilseyville later on in one of the barrels that they found on the property that had many other people's things, identifications of several victims that Lake and Ng had locked up in these little barrels. But he lived at 135 Stilling, which is right down here at the end of the street. I don't spend too much time here. I noticed there was a guy sitting there in his window doing his work, but he left this apartment about 8 o'clock to go meet with Lake. We assume is Lake, and I mean, it obviously was, and then disappeared. And it is this kind of light colored house with the Honda, or that little blue car right here. That's it. Never seen again. They were never able to identify any of the remains or tie them to Paul from the remains they found in Wilseyville. But that's where he lived in 1984, November 2nd, when he disappeared. So the day before my birthday, on July 24th, 1984, Harvey and Deborah Dubs and their 16-month-old son, Sean Dubs, disappeared. Apparently, Harvey rented out video equipment, and also, you know, on the side he did weddings and things like this, and did editing packages for various things, photography things, whereas his main job was working for a printing company. They lived right up at the end of the street in the yellow house up there on the corner. It's super steep. Neighbors saw an Asian man drop by to answer an ad, they're assuming, because Harvey had one in the paper about the rental equipment. Later, some of this camera equipment was found in Ng's apartment, as well as the cameras that were found at the Wilseyville property. Let's see. So Lake was also seen there by a neighbor who dropped by later and found the keys to the house in the doorway. It's this yellow building right here. That was where the Dubs family lived. My favorite movies of all time, old cop movies, is Dirty Harry. Around 1972, 71 when they filmed that. Right on Stockton Street, Union, and Filbert. You can see that building. Oh, that's the sun. It's up on the rooftop. You can see it in the movie. He was going to kill somebody in the park. He was up there and the helicopter came in. California, just across the bay near San Jose. You can see the sign up here, Park Victoria Ocean Supermarket. It's an old Safeway sign, actually. That's the original, very error correct, as well as the actual supermarket. Even looks like an old Safeway, doesn't it? Longtime California people, they know. Although Safeways are all over the place anymore, but that's an old school Safeway sign. On April 12th, 1985, Kathy Allen had been working here. Her and her boyfriend, who apparently they found out later was an old cellmate with Charles Ng, had disappeared. They had been staying in a motel room nearby here, saying, I need to go do something. He got called away by Charles Ng, more than likely. And then a couple days later, she got a phone call while she was at work here as a cashier. The person said, look, your boyfriend's been in some sort of shooting. He needs your attention up in South Lake Tahoe. A little gold Prelude showed up. She drove away and she was never seen again until later on when she ended up on some of the videotapes that they found at the Wilseyville property. Kathy Allen, she was 18 years old. They were staying at a nearby motel. There's a series of motels down the street, but, you know, there's no way to really know without seeing the police reports and the various things. And then a couple of weeks later, her boss received a letter saying, you know, supposedly from her, saying that she got a job in South Tahoe and she would not be coming back. She was staying where her supposed boyfriend had ended up. Something else I forgot to mention, the guy Scott Stapley or Robin Stapley, or Robert Stapley, or even Ronald Stapley. It turns out that he was actually friends with the Bond family, who were murdered up in Wilseyville as well. They were neighbors of Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. They had killed them too. They found the remains of Stapley and Lonnie Bond on the property. And Brenda O'Connor, the girlfriend of Lonnie Bond, ended up on some of those tapes as well. She also had an 18-month-old son that later they found out through Ng that baby was killed too.
Probably not.
But why are you doing this?
Because we hate you. Your baby is going to be taken away. Excuse me.
You mean to be taken away?
There's a family down in Fresno that doesn't have a baby.
You're not taking my baby.
And the baby's dead, right?
I mean, they got one now. That's my baby.
Her baby is sound asleep, like a rock.
The Bonds had moved up to the Wilseyville area, believe it or not, to open up some sort of a meth lab or a speed lab. But anyway, Milpitas near San Jose, California. On June 2nd, 1985, Leonard Lake and Charles Ng were at the South City Lumber. We're in South San Francisco area. I don't know if you can see this up on top of the hill. South San Francisco, the industrial city. Yeah, this is where you find a lot of, it's industrial, you find a lot of mechanic shops and of course lumber yards, etc. But just up past this, up on the right, is South City Lumber. And you know what I love about this town more than anything is everything's totally error correct, exactly as it was 30, 40 years ago, even much longer. I'm sure this lumber yard was built in the 1950s, but let's take a look. South San Francisco, the industrial city. I like that. Call it like it is. But right up here on the right, this large building, South City Lumber, this is the place where Leonard Lake and Charles Ng were on June 2nd, 1985, were attempting, well, Charles Ng absolutely stole a carpenter's vise. And when he was caught, anyway, this place hasn't changed a bit. It's exactly as it was many, many years ago. But Charles Ng attempted to steal a vise, carpenter's vise. He was seen by somebody that worked in the store. They called the cops, and when he said, stop thief or whatever, Charles threw it in the trunk of the Honda, the little gold Honda, and he went total rabbit. He just went hot foot out of here. A few minutes later, when the police showed up, Leonard Lake came out and he said he had it, I paid for it, here's my receipt. When the cops were looking in the trunk of the car, which was open, they found a .22 Beretta with a silencer on it, which is an illegal modification. It's not even a modification, really. It's just something that you put on the end of a pistol. When he did that, he asked Leonard Lake to identify himself, and he identifies himself as Ronald Stapley, who is a San Diego man who was only 26 years old. He actually had an ID card. He had Ronald's driver's license. Now, at this time, Leonard Lake is 39 years old. Ronald Stapley is only 26 years old. And so the cops thought that was highly suspicious. And so they took him down to the South City Police Department to talk some more. And on the way, police believe he had swallowed a cyanide capsule just along the way, because it was the same amount of time it would have taken for this gel cap to disintegrate. It would have taken about 20 minutes, which is about the amount of time that it took to get to the South City, San Francisco Police Department. But this is South City Lumber and Supply. Hasn't changed a bit. We're gonna go down to the cop shop, take a look at that. Somewhere along the way here, Leonard Lake would have taken his cyanide pill. He's sitting in the back, handcuffed, and when he got to the station, he said that he wanted to take a statement, and so he asked for a glass of water and a piece of paper and a pencil. They gave it to him, and he wrote a note to Lynn Balat saying, "I'm sorry." And that was it. That was the last thing. But along the way, he identified Charles Ng. He told the police who he was, and while he was at the station, he actually identified himself as Leonard Lake. And that's kind of when the whole thing began. The whole investigation of the case really took off. Restaurant Las Trancas. Las Trancas. It's kind of an oldish neighborhood. 1960s architecture. It's kind of cool, actually. I like it. The police station is just off a Arroyo Drive, just past the stoplight up here. Right. Here it is. San Francisco Metropolitan, South San Francisco Metropolitan Building. It's the old police station. Yep, that center building right there, it says police. Let's get a little closer. Thank God for editing equipment, right? So this is where Leonard Lake would have come with the police on June 2nd, 1985, and died in one of their interview tanks back there. When the car was impounded, the 1980 gold Honda Prelude, the police ran the VIN numbers because they were highly suspicious. Oh, I forgot to mention, the plates on the car belonged to a Buick owned by Lonnie Bond, who was his neighbor on the property in Wilseyville in Calaveras County, where the investigation really blew up. That's a huge story. It's going to take forever to get through all that. But Lonnie Bond was Lake's neighbor on that property. He had taken the plate off the old rusty Buick truck and put it on the little Honda Prelude, but when they ran the VIN number on the Honda, they found out that it belonged to Paul Cosner, who disappeared in San Francisco the year before, about 8 months before that. But this is where the case really took off. This is where it started. South San Francisco City Police Department, right here. I don't know if you can see that. The Glory Hole Center. Anyway, they have a lot of hot springs out here. And there's fishing, there's lakes. Like Maloney's in the south of here is Lake Don Pedro, Lake Tolic, several others. You know, there's way more than I can remember. But there's also a lot of very interesting caves out here. Moaning Caverns, Mercer Caverns. Moaning Cavern, for example, these cave systems are insane. They built a spiral staircase down into the center of this large one, and they figured out when they first discovered it years ago, they found that Native Americans in the area for decades, or centuries really, had been throwing each other or falling down there and dying over the millennia. And they found all kinds of bones of Native American, people that were here, indigenous folks, way before the white settlers. And Calaveras County is very famous for, in the 1849, the 49ers, San Francisco 49ers, This was gold country, gold mining country. People just got off the boats in San Francisco and headed straight up here. There's a town out here called Sutter's Creek, was where they found the very first gold nugget. Anyway, tons of gold history. You can find mine shafts all over the place, and old mining equipment and buildings from the 1800s everywhere. People's homes. People live in houses that are from the 1850s out here. I mean, not all of these, but some of these are very old. That one might be pretty old. Like, these are older 1800s homes. But we're coming into an area called Angel's Camp. Calaveras County, as you know, this was also the area where Leonard Lake and Charles Ning were. They had their cabin from Lake's ex-wife, Lynn Balatz. Her family owned the property up there, and we're heading up that way pretty soon, but just wanted to show you some of this area. Old gold mining community. These are really old buildings, old walkways, and it's never changed a bit. You know, I grew up near here, and nothing's changed a bit. They don't tear anything down, and very little gets added. It's kind of a time capsule from the 1800s. Northern California is quite beautiful.
Starting tomorrow, I start clearing the land. I've hired a man with a chainsaw to come over and cut some trees. And tomorrow evening a backhoe will arrive and I'll start excavating the earth. It'll be interesting to see how far this tape can I actually go. The next step, of course, is to bring in the backhoe and to do the crude digging. I'm taking this opportunity to set up the camera outside of the building and show the area. Of course, what we're looking at now is where the building is going to be. In a bit, we'll focus in a little bit on the exact spot, take a look at some of the trees that had to come down to make way for the actual digging. Some of these tree stumps are going to be a bitch to get out. Of course, the trees provided firewood, quite a bit of firewood actually. But basically what's going on now is I'm just using the camera to pan around, show the general area, get some idea of the countryside. This is also the first time I've used the camera outdoors. I'm looking at the road that the backhoe will have to come up, basically playing with the zoom function and the focus. Recording something like this as an ongoing event is of course something very new to me. This is the first time I've ever done this with the video camera and the first time I've used the camera outdoors. And now enter the backhoe, a case 480. even with a case 480, one has to shift gears to get up the hill. I'm not going to take the time or the tape to show each bite of the shovel and the likes of that. Besides, right now I've got the advantage of having a couple of helpers operate the camera, whereas very soon I won't. But this is the start, and that's the 24-inch blade that's going to do the job. In a moment, we'll show you what it did. So, here it is. The backhoe worked for 24 hours. Myself and two young men with our little picks and shovels and wheelbarrows worked for another 3 or 4 days cleaning up after the backhoe. And what has resulted is a earth about 21 feet across and 18, 19 feet back. And the trenches you see on the ground are the trenches that are going to hold the concrete footing for the building. Little dog chasing a butterfly. It's one hell of a lot of work. And of course it's not over. Let me scan the countryside while I'm here. This little piece of monstrosity was one of the tree stumps that came out of the hole over there. Took me an hour and a half with the backhoe to get that thing out. Over here you see where we've dumped some of the dirt. Well, that's enough for now. The next scene you see will probably be the concrete trucks pouring the concrete in the footing. And then we start to build. I can hardly wait.